Oh no. Oh no. Here it is again. It is Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and midnight in the Czech Republic. Am I right about that? It's midnight, right?
It is midnight.
Well, welcome, gentlemen. And before we do official introductions, this is Cameron Flask, and you are on the C47's YouTube channel. Soon to hopefully have memberships. Who knows? I put in a request today, even though I don't have the numbers. A very nice gentleman by the name of Ryan was very kind and said he would put in the request and that I could actually qualify. Because you know, gentlemen, that if you're a gamer on YouTube, you only need 1,000 subscribers to have memberships. But if you're a regular YouTuber, you need 30,000. So there's a $29,000. I mean, 29,000. I wish. There's a 29,000 subscriber difference between being able to have members if you're a regular YouTuber and if you are special in the gaming.
Why?
Is that a Twitch thing? Are they trying to lure people over?
Yeah.
Mr. Caleb? Okay.
100%. Right. That's what it is.
Well, I pleaded my case. We'll see. And just by the way, there's the DJ horn. We have to, before we do anything else today, congratulate Mr. Caleb Pike, the golden child, the golden boy, who has hit in the last, is it 24 or 48 hours? 500,000. Just for you kids out there, that's 500,000 subscribers on his DSLR video shooter YouTube channel. Amazing accomplishment. Very proud of you, and huge congratulations, Caleb, to you for that.
Thank you. I was not expecting that little treat, so I appreciate it.
Yes, very excited. Amazing. So well done.
I'm just going to say though, and I don't want to piss on anyone's chips, but I hit 42.
I love that saying.
What?
You what?
I hit 42 subscribers this week, so
yeah, buddy.
Get that? You are. That's it. It's only up from here, except for mine went down this week. But so I can, maybe I'm lying. They went down. They went.
You know
up.
what's funny is when I tweeted the day before, and I said something like "so close" and posted a picture of where it was at. Immediately lost like 80 subscribers.
Oh,
or something like that.
Unbelievable.
It was so funny. Yeah.
Amazing. Look at this. Okay, so just a quick one here. We got a super chat to start things off. Canadian $5 from Rob, our friend up north. Here's his little contribution for that fancy coffee machine you've got your eye on. What I really want that coffee machine to do, by the way, gentlemen, is I want it to put a shot of espresso in there, and instead of the milk machine, I don't need that crap. I want to fill the other side with whiskey, and it'll just automatically put like a shot of whiskey into my coffee when I want it. Not always, or maybe. And we'll see if we can invent that one.
Why not skip the coffee machine altogether and just get a barrel of Glenlivet 12 or whatever it is you drink nonstop. Just put it in the background, on one of those stands. You just walk up with a glass.
I like it. Why not?
Great idea.
Bart just said, Ben, you now have 43 subscribers. So well done.
Hey
now. Thank you, Bart.
Much. Wow.
Hey, Shiz. Hey, Michael.
All those nights staying up late paid off.
We got the Grumpy Penguin in here. Jake, of course, and Bill, and a few cast of characters who had a nice little scrolling back, a little chat before we started up. Alex is here. Alex, I haven't seen you in the chat for a while. Maybe you've been here, but the voice has not been heard. So pleasure to have you back here at Cameron Flask.
Alex Miner, he's a legendary member.
Yes,
on my channel. He's been there for 2 years or something. Beast mode, that guy.
Wait, what do we do? Oh, just hook it up so that when viewers super chat, it adds a shot to your coffee. I like it. Or just a shot. Hey, Brian. All right, so let's do this. Let's do drinks. now that we've done the congrats, and this is definitely going to be chat heavy this episode because we're getting into the rumors. We're going to bring the specs up on the R5 and R6. But Ben Barden, what are you having to drink over there?
So I have, as is always the way, I have interesting beer in the fridge, but I'm not drinking that tonight because I need to sleep. So I am on the Old Faithful, I'm afraid. I'm on the cooking
Don't
whiskey.
ever apologize.
This is the... Okay. Well, I just, I like to have something new, something to talk about each week, but this is just a bad time of day.
Rad van.
Yeah, man, that's true. Yeah, if anyone knows, if anyone's selling a Volkswagen multivan for sale in Europe, Czech, Germany, Switzerland, Holland, let me know. Sort me out. So that's what I'm drinking this week. This is the Lidl's finest Queen Margot 5-year-old blend, which is the Daily Driver. That's what I'm on.
And look at this. I didn't see it, so thank you. Look at 10 euros. Get out of here, Shiz. You are a ridiculous human being and a consistent supporter every week, along with Rob and a couple of other cast of characters, one of whom tends to come in right at the end, sneaks it in. It happens. And, we love having you every week, even when you're cheeky. Not as cheeky as Small Brown Fox, though. That is a new-ish, not so new anymore member who we've got to watch out for. We have our hit list, and we just got to keep our eyes on you, but we enjoy doing that anyway. Oh, there he is, 360 grad. Speak of the devil. Unbelievable. Caleb, what you drinking today?
Today, we're going to be sipping on some good old Knob Creek.
Good for you. Beautiful.
Stuff. It's delightful, but depending on how much water you do or do not put in it, you got to be very mindful of your breathing. You're going to have a bad time. When that 100 proof hits you, you're breathing wrong. Oh, man.
Come on. What's going Alex Miner comes in with a super chat. $6 US, 2 shots for each of you. Little tiny shots, but we can do it. We can get them in. We can make this happen. When you buy a bottle, you get a lot more shots out of it. So this is good. It's beautiful. I think we've got a lot of people here. I'm happy. I'm going to be drinking local today. There is a bottle of scotch, by the way. It was a version of a Glenlivet, which I'll try to... I don't think there's any left because we had a 4th of July thing here, and I just started sharing it with my friends, and that bottle just went to all hell. Or whatever you call it. This is a local. It's called Bull Run. They make a whiskey that is twice as expensive, that is not even half as good as this one. This one's about $35 US, and it's aged in Pinot Noir casks, and whatever it is about that, it takes the edge off of this nice American whiskey, and it drinks very smoothly, actually. And that's what I'm having today.
Lovely. Beautiful colour, that thing.
It really is. And I think it's a cheers to Caleb Pike, again, for his 500,000. Amazing.
You guys got to stop
You guys are out of control. Come on, you absolutely. Let's put some party noise on there. There we go. Just to take the piss. And then Slanjava. All the best. Caleb.
Cheers. Another
Lovely.
10 years and I might hit 1 million.
Oh, you'll hit 1 million within, I'm going to say, 12 to 18 months will be probably about right.
No.
Oh, for sure. I looked at your projections.
I
looked at your projections. It's going to happen, brother. Okay, just keep cranking out that amazing.
Checker.
I'm a projection checker.
And a second cheers to the news, because things are looking up for Canon fans, or those company included, that are ready to run home with open arms.
We are less than 24 hours away from the R5, R6, plus lots of RF mount lens announcements. And we do know we have all the stuff, 360 grad. It's waiting in the scenes of Ecamm Live. And we're going to have to see how things go. Still looking at final prices. They're already going. They're exploding on the chat already. It's out of control.
360 grad is officially like Engadget when there's Apple announcements doing the live blogs.
I know, it's ridiculous. The one thing I'll say is, Alex, just to answer your question before we jump into specs and everything else, is yes, I am still using the Fuji cameras, and I am very happy with Fuji right now. Do I have some things that I'd like to change? Of course, but as we've always said, and we will say forever, there is no perfect camera. So, let's go ahead and bring up some Well, not... Yeah, this is not going to be a perfect camera. Trust me. We're going to stitch and bitch. By the way, next week, we will be following up this episode with another episode, which will be a recap of the announcements and any other rumors that might be flying around about these cameras. We're going to talk about the realities of the final specs and what they are and our take. Hopefully by next Wednesday, you can tune into the live stream, even if it's on a replay, and kind of see what they're talking about. Let's find some stuff in there that we can pick apart when we get in next week. And then 2 weeks from today, I have an idea for a challenge for the three of us, which actually has to do with us going out and actually shooting something. So we're going to talk about that later. I didn't say ladies, I said later. Though, you know, when you drink a lot, you might. It's going to be a frames challenge where we're going to have to go and we'll conceptually on paper all have the same assignment for what we're going to do, but we're going to see what we come up with, and it's just going to be interesting if you guys are down for it. So we'll see what happens. Okay?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, so Caleb, I know you're going to host next week, but I'm going to have you sort of jump in. You're also probably pretty well versed on this. I'm going to bring up 4 documents. The first one is going to be R5 specs. Second one's going to be a little bit more in-depth, having to do with the 8K recording functionality. No, I have not been already sipping on the sauce. And then R6, and then the pricing. Yeah. In fact, you know what?
Oh, jeez.
Let's go ahead and say, let's just start with the pricing, boys and girls, and let's get it out of the way. So when we take a look at our pricing here, these are the rumored prices for the cameras that are coming out tomorrow. And let's just jump in and have a chat about this. And what are some of your thoughts? Do people believe this now? Because you know, rumor sites are pretty accurate. Any feelings, gentlemen? Come on in.
It's not $37.99, David. But pretty
How
close.
relieved were you when you saw that, UT?
I'm happy there. I mean,
would have been messed up.
Yeah.
I was surprised it's so close to that. I was expecting that to be an awful lot more. If that's right,
Yeah,
that's
way lower.
surprising.
But now I'm getting greedy. Now I'm like, why not 35? Why did you have to throw another?
Is that
400
really?
on it?
Did that actually come? Did that actually? Rumor sites 100% accurate 20% of the time. When we get this close, though, you know, it gets really, really accurate. But I'm still when we're looking at UK prices and some of the other worldwide prices, I still think there's a chance that the R5 could come in at over $4 US, but I'm not saying it won't be $38.99.
The UK prices that I had seen were identical, which is generally par for the course these days. So whatever you get it in dollars, forget the exchange rates, forget anything else, it's the same amount in pounds.
I thought in Canon Watch, I thought on Canon Watch it was $41.99 in pounds. Yeah, I think so. Somebody can go check that.
Same. Okay. All right.
So that's why I have my and that's why I have my doubts.
Okay. So that is strange, because bearing in mind that the UK-US exchange rate is, I think, around 1.2, 1.3, something like that at the moment. The other thing to bear in mind is that when you look at a UK price, that's end consumer pricing, which includes VAT, which is what you call sales tax.
Yep.
Which your prices in the US do not include.
But Lover of Tech says
thinking?
that the price. Yeah, but Lover of Tech says that the R6 is coming in at £24.99 pounds sterling,
which is the same
as the R6 in US. So I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy on the R5 here. Despite Caleb and I and some of the things that we might be in for, I'm pretty happy if this camera comes in at under $4,000 US. If any of these specs, most of these specs turn out to be completely true, which I'm guessing at this point they are. So let's go back to that and take a look. So we've got the R6 body at $24.99. We've got kits, very respectable. I mean, the 24 to 105. See, that's Oh, okay. I guess
it's the RF 24 to 105, which is still very new and very expensive.
No, but why is there's two 24 to 105s. There's the IS-STM
there's the new
lens.
IS-STM, which is like f4 to 7 or something.
Yeah.
But wait a minute.
Speaking of prices, that 85 f2, holy cow, $600. That's great. It's a macro.
Yeah, it's unusual to find a $600 85. That's
a slap across the camera pond at Sony with their 85 1.8, which is about that, if not a hair more.
Got it.
It's my guess, but it's great.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So how do people in the chat feel about this? What we got with the price of the R5 and what it's bringing to the table, and if I'm able to achieve some form of unlimited recording internally like the JH5, then the S1H is in trouble. Yeah, that's one of the things that we don't know 100% on, do we, gentlemen? Which is sort of the whole recording time stuff. Is that in any of the specs?
Right.
No. And there are some, we've been talking about for the last however many months when we keep referencing this, and when the specs started to come out, and we've all been saying, what are they going to do to cripple it? What are they going to do that makes this spec sheet less desirable than it first appears? And I don't know if either of you spotted the thing on the R6 spec sheet about, just in terms of saying recording times, but about the formats. There was something about it only being able to record all eye in time-lapse mode on the 6.
Really?
Now so the 6 has been, to me personally, that's a really interesting camera, and it's a good thing that just slots into the workflow for $2,500, increases capability a bit, but that's quite a major crippling if it can only do that in time-lapse mode, and then we're having to go back to IPB for everything else. It's interesting.
Very interesting. We're getting some comments on
MP4.
Huh?
IBP and MP4.
Yes, we're getting some comments about the quality of the video right now. I'm not looking at the YouTube stream. Can you gentlemen confirm or not that you're seeing something?
It looks good, all right to me.
Okay.
Just pull it up and it looks crispy.
Okay, so maybe that's the person's deal. So let's get into the R5 a little. Let's talk about that, because that's the big boy. That's the one that, at least most of the focus is on. And let's start to look at some of the specs here. We're getting some looking good, looks fine, but Caleb's audio is so-so. You're sounding clean to me, Caleb, but I don't know.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, okay.
You're so. Whoever said that.
You're
so.
No, I'm just kidding. Beautiful. All right, so CF Express cards, we know about that. That just has to do with how much they'll fit of 8K RAW, depending on where the data rate is and what that screenshot was. Apparently no crop in 8K 30 or 4K 120 and that's supposedly
Can we
verified.
pause there for a quick second?
Yes.
I feel like these come from Canon. A lot of these final leaks right before the streams.
Yep.
And you got to look at the details. And sometimes something like that, like it makes me wonder now: are they going to crop 4K 60 for some reason?
That's
like
interesting. And they
what
do
if
crazy
4K
stuff like that.
120, what if 4K 120 has no crop, but it's like some awful data rate or line skipping, rolling shutter awfulness, something. But 4K 60 has a crop. Just like stuff like that. You start to get worried when you see things missing,
Mm-hmm. And also, you need to look past the numbers. It's even in terms of the C200 when it has that 120 frames that it'll do, but it's unusable. It's hideous. And you go, all right, well, 1080, 120, that's great. I can live with that. Fantastic. You can't use it. It's so horrendously terrible. So the proof of the pudding's in the eating. This is all still numbers with no proof that it actually produces pretty pictures. But even so, I agree. There's lots of little things. It's like that all-eye thing that you just go, what? Wait, hang on. Sorry.
Yeah, and Brian's kind of bringing up a good point. Remember, they didn't include 24 in some of these newer cameras, which was just redonk. And then Alex is saying probably no dual pixel autofocus in 4K 120 or 8K 30. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, the C300 Mark III does have dual pixel in those modes, but are we going to really expect to see that in this camera? I mean, there's brace for the cripple hammer, Daniel Scott Design says. That, the one thing that we're not seeing here for sure is we're not seeing anything, and I've said this since day one. Oh, maybe I have the wrong thing here. I think I do. This is the 8K specs, and you can see here. Well, let's just talk about it. No? What are you guys seeing over there? You're seeing the correct thing. Don't listen to me. I'm confusing the issue here. So this is what I should be looking at. Data rates. We're just not seeing anything related to data rates on these cameras, as far as I can tell. Have you seen anything like that, gentlemen? Anybody on the chat?
No.
I mean, they're not telling you at what resolutions and what frame rates the data rates are. I mean, I'm guessing that the RAW is going to be Cinema Raw Lite, but it's really hard to say. I mean, these are the basic specs. We know it's a full frame. It's supposedly a 45 megapixel camera. It's supposedly 8K. And when we look at image formats here, we see RAW. It says CR3, which is, I don't know what that means.
That's for stills.
Oh, that's their
stills,
CR3. Sorry, that's their stills, 14-bit. And then C-RAW, we don't know if that's going to be Cinema Raw Lite or not. Alex is saying 100 megabits per second in 8K. I hope you're taking the piss right now, because that would just be like a knife to my heart. Yeah, and it'll be 8-bit. Can you imagine?
Oh man.
Yeah, all of the specs are true with no limitations. It is the dream. Yeah, I don't know. It smells terrible. It's like durian fruit. All eye. Intra predictive bi-directional option, raw. Yeah, Digic X7 blah or something they're going to put on there. Okay.
I saw somewhere else, and Lover of Tech mentioned it here a second ago. He's nailing a bunch of stuff in the comments.
Yeah.
That somewhere I saw all 4K modes have no crop, and 8K 30 RAW has no crop.
So when you say all modes,
all 4K
all 4K modes, including RAW,
no crop. Well, there's no RAW 4K, right? It's just 8K.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
It'll be 1,000
couldn't do that without
megabits per second in HD, and it'll be 100 megabits per second in 4K. and it'll be 50 megabits per second in 8K.
There you
Can
go.
you imagine? They're going to do something. I wonder what the external options are going to be on the camera too. You know, what's it going to spit out of the external port? That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Not something
that's
that
a
people
good
have
point.
talked
Like,
about.
what if they do something crazy, like it's limited to something awful on the R5, and then the R6 you have to buy a Ninja recorder.
Yeah.
That's another gotcha they could do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, you know, it wouldn't be the first time. Both Ben and I shoot with the C200. And do we need to discuss what you can do over HDMI? I mean, and more importantly, SDI on that camera? I mean, it's so crippled. It's sort of like they gave you Cinema Raw Lite internally, so they said, F you can't record RAW externally. And I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if that's the case on this camera as well.
But
Yeah.
do you? And again, we've had this discussion before, but Canon seem to have had a slight change in their mentality on this front, because it was always very much this protectionist sort of mentality that they were protecting the higher end cameras. That was the C200 thing all over. That was why they weren't giving you the higher frame rates. It was why we couldn't record 10-bit internally. But then when you look what they've done with the new versions of the C300 and 500, it seems right, what can we fit in it, make it all work? And it'll be very interesting to see whether that mentality flows through to these two cameras, or whether, again, they're back to this very much protectionist
That's a good point.
kind of mindset.
Yeah.
C500
To me,
and C300 pretty great now, so maybe
Yeah.
that'll trickle down.
maybe. What was I going to say? Somebody, lover of tech, you can post that, whatever that is that you're talking about. I think tomorrow's going to be hugely telling in terms of what the next phase of Canon is going to be. Because once we find out what those data rates are going to be, once we find out kind of where things are crippled, and believe you me, there will be places that they're crippled. I'm hoping also that we start to see some videos by tomorrow going into next week, that they've gotten the camera into some people's hands, because that's how we'll start to dig into, you know, what this stuff really is, when we start to see some menus and, you know, some white papers and stuff.
So I was going to ask Caleb this: how many people are going to have got these and be putting out reviews? How quickly?
I mean, I've not talked to anyone who's got one, but you know, no one's going to talk.
No,
That's not something you want to mess up on.
No.
So it's been pretty quiet. Yeah. No Hawaii trip, that's for sure.
Yeah.
For reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine they've got them out somewhere, and hopefully the filmmakers that have them are going to do more than, you know, landscape shots and
Yep.
you know, the one like dancing person or something.
So Sky says,
And please, can we be done with
yeah.
the dancers in the black background? You know what I'm talking
Or-
about?
or
Like
the-
every
or-
single
well-
camera relief ever.
Well, I just saw the video for the C300 Mark III today, and it's a dancer on an airplane with no people in it, and then jumping off of the wing of the airplane, a ballet dancer. I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? Like, the money's there, so shoot a scene. You know, shoot it, even if it's a scene with one person, shoot a scene. If you're, whatever. Okay, so don't even get me going. Sky says, thinks the R5 is going to be terrible if you don't want to use the 8K, and other options are going to be so crippled. Interesting. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that camera manufacturers have done that, you know. I mean, even Caleb talking about the Pocket Cinema camera, and you take a look at the 6K camera, and you really would buy that camera for 6K, not for 4. If you're going to shoot 4K, you really want to get the 4K camera, right? Overall feelings. Yep. So It's not as it seems on these white papers, let me tell you. Who do you think has a review unit? Peter McKinnon, for sure. I would say.
Well, he's part of the part of the
on
presentation tomorrow.
Yeah, he's in the presentation, so he's got to go.
Ah.
Peter Gregg, yeah, shiz.
Okay, so let's go back to these recording options here. So this is the infamous screen that everybody's seen in terms of the 8K recording options. And we've got DCI, Digital Cinema Initiative 4K. That's 8K. And then we have 8K UHD, which is 16:9 aspect ratio. There's 4K options in both DCI and ultra high definition. And then we have full HD. The only thing that we're seeing right now is clearly the camera's set to PAL, and we're in 8K DCI at a true 24 frames per second. So I'm assuming then when you flip this camera over to NTSC, we're going to see our 2398 option and things like that. And then down in the bottom row, we're seeing RAW, All-I, and then IPB, which is basically a long GOP codec. And that's the other thing that I'm interested in. And you'll see that there's a grayed out icon to the right of that too, which is an IPB. And then I don't know what the heck that arrow facing down is. But, you know, what's the codec that they are choosing outside of Cinema Raw Lite? And to me, that's also as big of an issue as it is in terms of having RAW on the camera. Because you take a look at the C200 again as a good example. Internally, when you're recording to SD cards, you are crippled to 8-bit. You are, crippled to 150 megabits per second, which is, yes, slightly higher than a Sony mirrorless camera, but quite honestly isn't much higher. And so what is the codec that this camera is going to have when you start to get out of your RAW options? Any guesses? Caleb, Ben, what do you think they're going to do? Is it going to be some crappy ass thing, or are they going to actually choose a real XF AVC codec for this camera?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with what they're able to do, what they're saying, what these numbers are telling us on the high end. So it's complete mystery to me. H.266 is what Shiz is guessing. I mean, if I had to guess, it would be, standard Canon stuff for the 4K. So it'd be the 400 megabits a second, stuff we've seen on the R, except full frame.
And 10-bit.
For both 4K 60 and 4K 120, that's all kind of new territory for most manufacturers. So
yeah,
it's a good question.
Lover of Tech is on fire today. So there's a tweet that he posted, but apparently confirmed specs show that they will be using an H.265 codec, now that H.266 has been announced this past week, by the way. Like the Fuji XT3 and XT4 to be able to achieve 10-bit internal. So maybe we're looking at 10-bit 420 internally at up to 400 megabits per second. I wouldn't doubt it. I think that's realistic. Yeah. But I'm hoping that they don't do some other bullshit where they lock it into a data rate, because I will tell you on the XT4 that 200 megabits per second H.265 is kind of the sweet spot. It's not that I don't want to use 400, but it all depends on what you're editing in and how happy it is with that. I'm also finding that All-I is actually harder to work with on an XT3 and an XT4 than IPB. And so the sweet spot, at least on the Fuji cameras, is kind of 200 IPB, at least in Final Cut Pro, but that depends on what you're using as your NLE. So, yeah, geez.
It's going to get pretty interesting in the next couple of years. By the way, Shiz, I thought you were joking, but H.266 is a real thing, which Jem mentioned. And I was like, oh,
it
snap,
is.
I should look that up.
Yep.
But H.266, Apple with their whole ARM, eventually doing their own GPUs. It's all going to get real interesting. So it'll be nice to have 4K YouTube on my MacBook Pro in Safari and on my Apple TV.
Well, I tell you,
First time.
whatever that next 16-inch MacBook Pro is with an ARM processor, at least in Final Cut, maybe not in the other NLEs, I don't think you're going to have too much of a problem with it. I mean, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to tune the F out of that thing, and it's going to be a monster when it comes to dealing with that. So, it's some growing pains for people who are in other app ecosystems. But if you happen to be somebody who is Mac-based and you're living in an Apple apps world, then, it's going to be a great starting experience for you. If you're using other apps, there's for sure going to be some serious growing pains during that transition, is my guess. Interesting. So how do you guys feel about, both in the chat and also you guys, about them coming out with this R6? And I still don't get the naming conventions, but that's just me.
It's supposed to be like the 5D and the 6D, so
Yeah.
R5.
Yeah, I know,
But-
which I still didn't.
And I never
make-
understood the 5D and 6D, so.
No.
To me, it's an interesting camera, and it's in some ways more attractive, the 6, than and again, depending on whether these prices are confirmed and what have you. But the 8K and the RAW for a camera, for what I would use a camera like that for, it's more headache than it's worth. And just in terms of the media costs, if you think about shooting a lot of stuff in 8K and RAW on that, and the cost of the media for that, it's huge. The 6 just fits into a lot of people's workflow instantly for a really low price, depending on what it eventually ends up doing in terms of codecs and what have you. But
Right.
good frame rate, full frame. It's got the in-body image stabilization. It's a very useful bit of kit for a tiny price. I mean, that's I can't remember what the R was when it came out. Similar, or was it more?
Not more, right,
What came out?
Caleb?
The R?
How much? Yeah, how much was
Yeah.
the R when it
I think
came
it was
out?
like 23 to 25, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I
Or
think
23.99 or something.
But it is saying here, at least rumor-wise, that it will also have RAW recording for.
I
for
think, again,
movies.
that's
But you think that's
Stills,
just stills? So
That's
you think
just
that's
stills.
just stills? So you think that the
Yeah.
R5 is
See
the
how
only
it's
one that's
like
going to get
blah,
yeah.
blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, and then it's like movies, this,
I
this.
got it. Okay. Got it.
yeah.
So you don't think that we're going to see that on the?
No.
Okay, so we're going to
I
basically
don't think
be, we're going to be hanging in whatever those other codecs are going to be
Yeah.
R6, and then you go
So
up to
that's-
the
Well, that's the thing, and it depends what they end up crippling it with in terms of the codecs. And if we're not getting the all-I in the 6, then we need to wait and see what the footage is like off it in the other codecs that it offers. But that's it's a concern. But it's not got the media to be able to handle RAW. It's only SD, and
Right.
it's 5K.
Wait, what is?
The R6 has dual SD cards, UHS-2.
Oh, so no CF
R5
Express
has the CFast
No.
and the SD.
copy.
So just in terms again of that, a cheap upgrade for a lot of people, it's going to work with media that you already have, and for some, and Jem, for people like me and you that if you're shooting in RAW at all with the C200 and you've invested in CFast cards, and then you're going to go and get the R5, well, they don't work in that, and vice versa. So you've got these two sets of exceptionally expensive bits of media that don't work with your two Canon cameras, which I think a lot of people have been talking about. Some in the forums that I'm on about pairing these new cameras with existing Canon cinema
You're
cameras.
saying
So
you
it's an
can't
interesting.
use your CFast from your C200 in the R5?
No, we
You can't, can you? They're different.
What he's saying is that-
rather than CFast
Oh, is it
Express.
CFast 2?
no CF
Versus-
Express.
Express? It's a smaller one.
Oh, that's right.
So it's
I
what
keep
they,
thinking
so it's what they're
CFast.
using. It's the same cards that
Right.
they're using in the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II.
Like two. Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how compatible these two different sensors are, especially the R5 is, with both the C500 Mark II and the C300 Mark III, which are very different sensors, which is a whole other discussion. Because, and then also what versions of Canon log and what gamuts they include in the cameras, you know?
It's all going to be interesting to see.
It's all going to be interesting to see how far they go. Now, when you shoot in RAW, that's a moot point because you're, in theory, going to get the most dynamic range that you can get out of the camera, based on, of course, being somewhat limited to the data rate. But, you should be getting a 12-bit internal recording, in theory, to the camera. They do cripple some of the RAW on the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II to 10-bit if you're in certain frame rates, I believe. But so we might see some of that. But I'm assuming it's a 12-bit. It's probably somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 megabits per second, which is where Cinema Raw Lite will fit. Somebody could probably do the math on that 20 minutes of record time. So many things to discuss next week once we have more data, because we really need to discuss compatibility with other cameras, and also, do these two cameras fit well with each other? 20 megapixel on R6.
Two different sensors, right?
Two different sensors and then what does that translate into if you're shooting in UHD 4K? If you're shooting 20 megapixel, I'm assuming we can get some downsampling into that, right?
Yeah,
we
it's
can
5K to 4K.
5K, yeah.
Yeah.
On the R6.
And then...
another big question I don't think I got to address when it comes to the R5 is, are we going to have any kind of pixel binning to go from an 8K 45 megapixel sensor down to 4K?
No, I believe I've read somewhere, and again, nothing that we're talking about is confirmed, but I'm pretty sure I believe I've read somewhere saying that it doesn't.
Oh.
That it's downsampling rather than
downsampling 8K to 4K?
Yeah, but I can't remember where I read that. But I think there's a lot of people going, well, how the hell do you've got a body this size, where's all the heat going if you're having to be doing that downsampling? Where's there's a lot of thinking going on somewhere in that chain.
Body's not that big.
I'm curious.
Exactly.
I mean, they're saying you can do 8K RAW for 20 minutes without the camera overheating. How's that possible in that body?
Well,
in RAW, it's not doing as much work though, is it? If I know it's writing it, but it's not having to process it really. So I would say it's more when it's having to downsample it and encode it. It's creating more heat than recording the RAW. Or is that a complete misunderstanding of how that works?
I think you're not far off. Like the Sigma FP, Sigma came out and said, "We're sorry, we promised 422 10-bit internal because it's not possible on the FP.
Just too much
but they
processing, too much heat.
Can do RAW. Yeah. But that camera's tiny, whereas this is much larger. So I don't know.
Brian's saying the grip is a water reservoir. 360 grad, maybe the best comment. We'll see. Maybe the R5 will have eye detection for not just cats and dogs, but flies, bumblebees, and lizards. Nice, yeah. If they can pull off the fly one, then they're all in. Insect detection. So what? Anybody see any interesting comments here? Because, really at this point, I think we're all agreeing and all discussing that as much as there's information on these rumor sites, on these, these sheets that I'm bringing up, we don't really have the nitty-gritty information that we need in terms of data rates, what types of log and gamuts. This is not really there.
But I see, a week ago, and in the weeks preceding, I've been quite excited about this and the specs and the information coming out. And these last few days, I'm so sick of just seeing YouTube videos going, which one should you buy, the 5 or the 6? We have a half-hour video. Fuck off, honestly. You don't know what it is yet. We don't know what the picture's like
Yep.
off it. How can you do a video advising people on which... neither of you two have done this week, have you?
No.
Nope.
No, sorry, okay, cool.
That would've
I'll
been
carry on
great.
ranting. Shit, if
Actually, I was gonna share mine, but
But have you seen, because we don't know. We don't know how the image is going to look off it. We don't know what the little niggles are going to be with it that make it unworkable.
yep.
It's just, yeah, there's been way too much about it this week. And I'm also slightly suspicious as to how much has been leaked. Particularly at the moment when people aren't...
Yeah.
Well, as in, just the level of detail that's been leaked.
Yeah.
And for so long. I don't know, it seems...
I mean,
slightly
nobody else is building, you know, I mean, Sony did their recent announcement or that interview where they said something is definitely coming. But
Yeah.
if I were Canon, I would be all over this thing like crazy because
Yeah.
they've got the eyeballs right now, and they haven't had the eyeballs for a long time. So
True.
I think
And
it's,
Canon-
it's these companies are leaking the information directly to people. And
They launched
like
a lot of
same-
spec early on
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Not
So
leaked.
I think they're
officially.
just trying to eat up. I think that's a button they keep on their desk whenever they're like getting a little scared about anything. They can just press that and like they own, you know, the news cycle and people's pre-order money.
You know what I think.
What?
I think I'm. All I'm saying is that Canon Rumours site has an awful lot of advertising space on it. You know, a lot of traffic gone across
Interesting.
there this week.
I
see.
think also though that if we really look at sort of, you know, what's happening right now, that I think we're going to see that R6 is going to have a big impact on the EOS-R as a camera.
Sure, it's going to
The RP has its own space, and they can reduce that to, you know, $799 US or whatever they're going to do. But if you're looking at your first full frame mirrorless camera and you're looking at the EOS-R, and then they announce specs that are in theory going to be what they are for the R6. I mean, if you're shooting
They've got
video
the
as
lineup,
well,
man.
huh?
They've got the lineup.
I know, but I don't think they're going to sell. Well, what I guess they could easily take that EOS-R and they just keep dropping the price of it.
Yeah,
and you know,
they're good
RP
to go
is going
because
to
they
go
have.
away. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the RP, I think they'll keep going. That's right now. It's a awesome little 1080p vlogger. I don't care about 10-bit 422 camera, live
Yeah.
streaming camera. The R is going to become the like entry level, like I want some log, I want 4K with autofocus, crop, sure, but whatever, and that's going to be like $1,200. Because they've played with pricing on that camera. Like you could buy it for $1,300 a couple times a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Yep, that's true.
Crazy. And
Tarek's saying
then
something.
you jump up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. No, you go, and then I'm going to bring up Tarek's
then you've
thing.
got the R6 and the R7 or the R5. I just hope the R. Honestly, my main thing with this whole situation is I really hope that the R6 is what the 6D should have been. The 6D when it came out was a really crippled, you know,
Super
really
crippled.
poor excuse for
Yeah.
a budget-friendly, you know, budget-friendly.
Probably the
Yeah.
for me the least exciting camera that Canon released, except for their Rebels. I was never a fan of the 6D ever. Artwork media is saying R is still safe for photo because it's 32 megapixel. The R6 is only rumored at least to be 20. So Tarek, I think, is bringing up a point that we haven't discussed today, which is dynamic range. So that'll also be interesting in terms of what they say on the live stream tomorrow. Are we going to see them touting, you know, 15 or 16 stops of dynamic range like the C300 Mark III is supposedly having because of the way they've tuned that camera? Or are we sitting in that sort of 11 to 12 or 12 to 14. So it'll be interesting if they speak about dynamic range at all. Because you would think if you're doing cinema raw light that we would be getting some more stops, in theory, if it's a good sensor. Feelings?
Well, Lover of Tech was all over the, he doesn't think it's going to be cinema raw right. He thinks it's going to be the same as a 1DC or 1DX3.
Oh, 1DX, not the 1D, yeah. So just standard Canon log, and what's the raw, though?
That's what I'm saying. The raw is going to be whatever the 1DX is.
It was a different type. It was a completely different format, wasn't
motion JPEG.
Yeah, but it was.
Well, it can't be motion JPEG as raw, can it? Because JPEG is technically once you go motion JPEG,
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Crap, I don't remember.
Wait, so 1DX Mark III has raw recording?
Yeah.
Shows you where I've been. Really?
And the 1DX2.
Oh, that's right.
The 1DX2, but no one
but
used
it's
it
not.
because the data rate was stupid time.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the 120 frames per second on the 1DX. Isn't that like motion JPEG, and it's like this file size is unbelievable?
Well, remember the
definitely not the same raw as in the
remember the $12,000 camera, which may have been originally even more than that, which was the 1DC. So the 1DC was really the first cinema, DSLR, or at least in theory. And that thing was amazing at the time in certain ways, but it was kind of garbage in terms of its
It was such a strange concept, that thing.
It was.
Weird. Why would you have done that?
Well, they were capitalizing.
There was a group of people who had coin and wanted a camera, so might as well throw it out there. Right. Yeah,
I mean, if you're Shane Hurlbut and you're making a feature film and you want crash cams, the best thing on the market at that time was the 1DC. No question about it. Yeah. There were no C300
promo videos for it.
There were no C300 Mark IIIs back then. You didn't have a $10,000 camera that you could just, crash into stuff. If you really look at the form factor of the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II, and you take everything off of those cameras, they're pretty tiny with Canon's batteries. They're not as small as a mirrorless camera, but they're pretty stinking small when you talk about cinema production. You can fit them into pretty small boxes. So So I just think my fingers are crossed that we see cinema raw light come to these. They've already invested in that raw format, and they're already putting that into quite a few of their cameras now. So, save for them actually surprising us and saying, oh, by the way, it's Blackmagic RAW, or we worked out a deal and it's ProRes RAW, I think Cinema Raw Light is probably their best choice. I just hope they give us some compression options like you have with Blackmagic RAW and also with Red cameras where you're not locked into one data rate, which also kind of annoys me when the camera manufacturers do that. Thoughts? I don't know. Is that a problem for you, Caleb? Like when they say, oh, you can shoot in RAW, but it's just all or nothing, and they don't give you any options in terms of how much or how little you want to compress it?
Compress-wise, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a tricky time to be coming up with something because there seem to be a bunch of standards arising right now, kind of having a standards war. So many different options. You got Canon, Red, then the two more open options being Blackmagic and ProRes. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like the cop-out is just to throw ProRes RAW in there and have Adamus take care of it.
Yep.
But yeah, obviously in my opinion, I just wish everyone had a RAW option that had multi NLE support. So me as a Final Cut user can get a plugin like the Red one or Canon and just go to town.
Yeah. And again, it circles us back to the whole discussion of whether or not they give us anything out of the camera that's usable for external recording, or they're just saying, the best of what you can get out of this camera is internal, and we're going to cripple it externally. I'm hoping we at least get a 10-bit 422 uncompressed signal out of the camera. That would be the minimum that I'd really want out of the R5 for sure.
Yeah, if the R and then for the R6, if they can just do 10-bit 422, 4K, multiple options with a decent gradable codec and image, then they're done there.
Yeah.
Are you talking about externally? We're not going to get anything above 420 internally, are we? Especially if they do H265. Can you do 422 H265 or not?
Bail us out again, lover of tech. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the list. By the way, lover of tech, I just subscribed to your channel. I'll check out you got a couple camera videos in there. Good stuff.
I have to go check it out. Cool.
See. Yeah,
It's another
lover
interesting
of tech on YouTube.
Another interesting point would be that price-wise with the 5, that's now getting to very similar levels to what you can pick up C200s for. The C200 is still a current model, and you just wonder, because is there something else coming in that space? Because C300s obviously move things on hugely to the new model of that. Are we going to see another cinema camera below that filling the C200 space? Because if you're looking on spec, the 5 is other than the audio obviously and the ND, it's kind of trumping the C200 across the board. Now obviously there's the look and there's the practicality of using that on set and as we say with the audio stuff, but where does that leave us in terms of this kind of roadmap for that end of the market in the cinema cameras?
Interesting.
Jan.
I don't think we're going to see a C200 replacement anytime soon. I think that these are the cards that Canon's laying out on the table. I think they've got the C300 Mark III. They can always drop that below 10 grand. I'm not saying that's in the same price point as C200. They've got a C200. It has cinema raw light internally. They're going to let that ride for as long as they can. And even though the codec to the SD cards is, mediocre at best, I think that's where they sit with that camera. And I think the R5, really, your question segues us into next week. And not only talking about and discussing what the actual specs are and the things that we've gleaned in the week going forward, but also, very importantly, where we think this form factor of camera sits in the market in the next 2 to 3 years. Because I'm definitely looking at smaller cameras very differently. I sort of had a roller coaster ride where it was sort of like, I'm really excited about mirrorless 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III sort of, GH series was kind of exciting, and then I went into this cinema, digital cinema camera world, and I was really excited about what I was getting out of those. And then in the last sort of year or so, with what's been happening with Fujifilm and Panasonic, now with with what's happening with Canon, I think that as long as we're talking about how we're going to use these cameras, it's actually really exciting in terms of what's happening with mirrorless. And it gets into how do you build these cameras out, how do you put weight onto them, how do you create inertia, how do you, but again, huge advantages. You talk about what, Zhiyun is doing, or Zhiyun, however you pronounce it, and DJI, smaller gimbals, and you talk about Tiffin, and you talk about being able to attach your gimbal to a proper arm for sort of steady cam style movement. And then you start to go on to a Dana dolly or something else, and you start to rig these things out a little bit. There's no reason why you can't do higher end production with these smaller cameras. You just have to have the right kit there. And wireless follow focus systems. I mean, there's a lot of things about Tilta I don't like, but that little nano wireless follow focus system, I mean, you're talking, $200 to $300 US, and you get wireless, transmitters and receivers for your monitoring. You can do amazing things right now with these cameras, and your cost of entry is just getting lower and lower, and the quality of picture that you can capture is getting higher and higher. It's crazy. Sorry, that was like a tangent, but I just, I think that's what we're
No,
going to
it's
talk
a good
about next.
point. Yeah.
So the
it's
million-dollar
it's a good
question:
point.
Will any of you be buying them? And if so,
Uh,
what would you be willing to replace your current cameras? In other words,
with me, there are two scenarios. I think that the R6, depending on codecs and obviously reading reviews of people using them properly, the R6 will replace the R, I think, almost certainly, because for me to have a gimbal camera that I can run at 4K in full frame for gimbal stuff is massively useful, and just not only for gimbal stuff, but just for general run and gun when I'm working on my own. A lot of the stuff I'm getting inquiries for and work that's coming in for the Czech Republic, it's quite different to the stuff that I get in the UK, and I think it fits that workflow very well. And leading on for the same thing, that and the offshore work that I do, when I'm really just needing to pack things into as small a space as possible to get things shipped. Would the R5 potentially replace the C200? Because if I bought the R5, that's what it would need to do. I would need to sell the 200, I think, and then go into maybe something like the Zoom F6. The F6 to be getting the
F17 with the Spider 16 inputs that go like this.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
That's an
not that one.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
The F rather than the H with the 32-bit float, and you're then able to, you're looking at a very, and to honestly, what all of that does is give you a very flexible package that you can slim it down to something very small, huge amount of firepower, brilliant to still be able to do raw, high frame rate, full frame, which is from my photography background. At the moment I don't have a full frame 4K solution. And I would love it. So yeah, I am seriously interested in all that stuff. And honestly, the only thing that would keep me using something like the C200, perfectly honestly now, if image quality and everything's there, and say big caveat to all of this, we don't know what they're like yet, is client perception. It's still a thing. You pull the C200 out, it looks like a proper camera. If a client's paying you a healthy day rate, do they want to see you pulling something this size out of your bag and going, what the fuck?
I'll just pull it out of a big. I'll pull it out in the cage if I have to.
Yeah,
I'll build it
seriously,
out.
that's the thing.
Throw a matte box on that shit, and they don't give a crap. As soon as they see a matte box, they don't even give a rat's ass. I know.
You're so right. It's that, and just stick a V-Lock power supply on the back of it, and you're done.
Yeah, they don't care.
And rails, and they're just like, okay, fine.
They're serious business.
Wait for all the Psycho accessories to come out, then you're good to go.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, okay.
I will answer very quickly because we have to wrap it up. I hear pitter-patter of small children and also a bed waiting for somebody over in the Czech Republic. I couldn't give a rat's ass about full frame right now, quite honestly. I think it's great in certain situations, but it's not the draw for me at the moment. I'm much more interested in what I can get out of a camera in terms of dynamic range. I want to know what the data rates are. I'm 100,000,000% on board for 10-bit. It's what can I do with the image. There's been, and there will continue to be, many videos out there that compare, field or angle of view and sensor size and the lenses you choose, and you can all figure that stuff out. And Super 35 is doing just fine for me right now. And it's not that I don't want it, but if I'm not getting a distinct advantage in terms of the image I can capture from the camera, then it doesn't really matter to me as long as I'm choosing the right lenses for the images that I'm capturing. So I'm on that XT4 bandwagon for a while, and I want to see how this all plays out. I'm excited about RF mount adapting to EF mount. So if I were going to get an R5, one of the big things that I would get right off the bat would be that adapter with the ND internally between the lens and the camera body, because that solves one of the big problems that we do have with mirrorless cameras and DSLRs. And I really hope somebody comes out
completely.
Well, not
No,
completely,
we need
yeah.
but
ND, but
I know. But remember, I also, we lack what Panasonic and Sony gives us in the Canon cameras when it comes to the audio department. So just like with Fujifilm, you have to work around that, and there's work to be done in order to get what you need out of it. We'll see how it all goes, but I would, I'm excited that this camera, meaning the R5, is coming out. The R6 doesn't excite me too much. Caleb, before we wrap this up, your thoughts on that question you had for us?
Probably. I haven't used a Canon camera regularly for video in, I don't even know, 6 years. So I'm excited to potentially go back to Team Red. Really excited. And then I'm really also stoked for next week's show. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to the C47 channel. I think we should also address the competitor cameras, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be coming up around this time of Canon and a little after. So I'm very curious to see, with the panic in the industry after all this Canon news, what's going to happen. Panasonic, Sony, are they going to get off their couch and really go to town again? It's going to be a great time. It's going to be good times all around for sure.
I think so. I think it's going to be great. And you're hosting next week, Caleb, so you're going to be steering the ship and taking these conversations where they need to go. If you can get me a quick title and description, that would be great. But also offline, check in with Ben and I about some of the things we should be looking into. Like if we should be getting our specs in for the S1H and trolling a little bit for some, not trolling, but looking for specs on the Unicorn camera and anything we can glean from that. And I don't think it would be wrong for us to also discuss our projections for where some of these cameras are going to go in the digital cinema camera form factor as well. When you take a look at Sony, they have not updated some of their digital cinema cameras in a long time. We have the FX9, but what about the FS5 too? That has not been updated in a long time. They have opportunity.
Why don't we do this?
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? Next week we just talk about the Canon announcements and such and hang out. And then the week after, what if we do a full camera industry audit, go brand to brand, hit on mirrorless and cinema and lenses, and talk about the strength, the weaknesses, what's coming up, what we would like to see, etc.
Yeah. And then after that, we'll do that challenge I was going to talk to you guys about.
I'm looking forward to that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's going to be based on a shot deck frame that we're going to have to all agree on. And we're going to we're not going to try to duplicate that frame 100%, but it's sort of what is our take on that, potentially. Or I'll do something else, but let's talk about it offline. You gentlemen are wonderful. Everybody in the chat is wonderful. If you scroll to the top of the chat, you will see that there is a Zoom meeting that is up there with a meeting ID and password. It is the post Cameron Flask happy half hour that I sometimes do. So you can grab that. I got a 10-1. If you don't know what that means, then you're not allowed into the room. And then I will be back in about 5 minutes. Gentlemen, any parting words, and let's fade to black. What do you got?
This video is brought to you by Lover of Tech and his supporting tweets and information. Thanks, dude. We'll see you guys next week. Looking forward to it. Tomorrow morning.
Ben? Yes, that's right.
Tomorrow
8 a.m.,
morning.
I think.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Pacific,
8 a.m. your time?
Well, I think it might be Pacific.
Eastern. So
it's 8 a.m.
real
Eastern.
early for Jim.
Oh, I better set my alarm.
Well,
it's
not
actually
really.
not
That's
that
only
early
6
for me.
a.m. That's not bad at all.
No, 8 a.m. Is it 8 a.m.? Is it 8 a.m. Eastern? So it's 5 a.m. So it's 5 a.m. It's 6 for you. That's not too bad. I'm usually up pretty early.
Easy.
And then
I'm going to do this meeting with my phone. Okay.
Yeah.
It's long. It's going to be long, so the good stuff's not going to be till the end, probably. They're
I'll
going
have
to be
some
we've been
espresso.
doing imaging for 57 years or whatever for an hour.
Sure. And then we'll see Peter McKinnon at probably 3 hours from then. They're going to milk this one. Just remember, they're going to milk this This is, they didn't pay for that booth at NAB. They're
It's
not paying
3
for a booth at
hours.
IBC. It's going to be redonkulous. Yeah. Crazy. All right.
Jem,
you guys are
the
awesome.
chat didn't keep the info, so you need to repost the info. It says people
What
are
do you mean it
saying
didn't chat the end? What are you talking about? All right,
the
hold
chat
on.
didn't keep the first info. No Zoom details.
Okay, just wait
His
1 second before
lover
I
of tech.
before I head. Hey, be careful, lover of tech, killing me. Stop posting. Stop posting things, you silly people over there. There's the meeting ID, and people with their trigger fingers over here. It's like a group chat. Boom. Okay, there's all the information. You guys are wonderful. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk about a lot of stuff coming up. And I will see you in about 5 minutes. I had something I wanted to say. It's probably not important, but now you have
You
the
didn't give
deets.
Ben his final words.
Ben,
Take us out,
Uh,
Ben.
take us out.
I've known this. Always wonderful to hang out with the two of you, my very good friends, and also now I feel our very good friends, the Dongles, who come and hang out with us every week. This is very much part of my social life now, and love it very much. And all of you. So, good night, adieu, farewell.
And final shout out to Rob and to Shiz for the super chats. You guys are awesome. Everybody's awesome.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next week where we talk about the real final specs on these cameras. All the best.